Mr. Chairman, great to have you with us at the table this morning.
Thank
Welcome.
you so much.
Let's talk about inflation. The president ran on that issue in the campaign. He said, I'll bring it down on day one. Prices have crept up steadily since he took office and now sure to jump if these tariffs, in fact, go into effect, which we have no reason to believe that they won't. What do you believe the impact is politically of these tariffs?
Well, look, he ran on this idea that he was going to help Americans afford their lives. This was a central promise he made, and from day one, he hasn't delivered on that promise. And in fact, these tariffs are going to make people's lives much more expensive, particularly people who are already struggling in America. Think about this, a 54% tariff on China, right? Most goods coming into discount retailers are made where? In China. And meaning that low-wealth people who can barely afford their lives right now are going to pay a lot more. These are the same people, by the way, who voted for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance on the promise that they were going to actually bring down costs, and they've done nothing but. In just 2 hours, as we just mentioned, we're going to see chaos and dysfunction at the just down the street as the markets open here, right? As we've now entered into a world trade war that's going to have dramatic consequences, not just for Americans, but people throughout the world. And this is what happens when you have people so carelessly approaching public policy in the way that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and Elon Musk has done.
Nika mentioned that Wisconsin race a couple of nights ago, a 10-point win for the Democrat there in the state Supreme Court race, much larger margin than I think probably you even expected or Democrats in Wisconsin were projecting. So as you look at it, yes, there's Elon Musk. There is all the cuts that touch Republicans and Democrats, whether it's at the VA, threats to Social Security. What do you read into that result on Tuesday?
Well, look, it was just about a month and a half ago I was on this show launching my Organize Everywhere tour, as you remember. And the idea there was that when you organize everywhere, you can win anywhere. And we're seeing that throughout the country. We've had 18 elections since Donald Trump was inaugurated. And Democrats have overperformed in 17 of the 18 elections, including on Tuesday night. Wisconsin, of course, was a wonderful win, but what happened in Florida was just as magnificent because we're seeing a huge swing our way with independent and swing voters who are pissed off at what they're seeing in this country right now, Republicans who are demoralized, and even some Republicans supporting our candidates because what they're seeing out of this administration is just chaos and dysfunction. But what I'm really excited about, of course, in Wisconsin it wasn't just a repudiation of Elon Musk. Of course, people rejected this idea that this unelected billionaire would try to buy their elections. It was a direct repudiation of Donald Trump. Brad Schimmel ran ads nonstop trying to link him to Donald Trump. And guess what? Donald Trump lost in that state by more than 10 points.
So, Simone, I think it's pretty clear the Trump administration owns all of this now. There was a little bit of overlap where they kept trying to blame anything bad happening on Joe Biden or the Biden administration. But the tariffs are all Trump's. He's been talking about tariffs for decades. He campaigned on tariffs. What's the opportunity for Democrats here?
Well, I guess the opportunity is to ensure that people understand what is happening. Donald Trump throws around the term tariffs, but I had to go back into my economics 101. I'm like, isn't a tariff, in talking about trade deficits, because
yes.
What he's saying is we've got these trade deficits. He thinks it's bad, so he's levying the tariffs. And the trade deficits with places like Indonesia for coffee make sense, because where are we making the American coffee beans? I don't think we're using that.
He's bringing up fights that I don't think Americans connect with.
They don't connect with, but I also think that some folks don't necessarily understand how it hits their daily lives until it happens to them.
Right.
And so I'm wondering, what is the DNC's plan for advertising to drive the point home? Because I know that there is a view from some Democratic elected officials that, people just have to feel it first. And I think that, yes, people are going to feel it, but if I feel it, but I don't understand who's done it to me, there's a disconnect there. And I don't think it necessarily will benefit Democrats if they don't understand who did it to them.
Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. And we've been getting out there, as you know. I mean, we stood up 50 town halls in 50 Republican districts over the last recess. We're going to do the same thing in the April recess. The reality is we need to get out there, make sure the message is getting out there, paid communications, earned media, all of that, everything, organizing in all those digital spaces, as you and I have talked about. It's really important that we do just that. Remind the American people that this tax which is what it is, this tax on hardworking Americans, is a direct result of the chaos and dysfunction of this administration, who so haphazardly have approached tariffs. Look, we know that tariffs, when properly applied and targeted the right way, can be an important tool to protect U.S. industry. I'm from Minnesota, right? It helps save the steel industry in northern Minnesota. But when done in such a haphazard way, and so indiscriminately, it's having a huge impact on all industry and people in this country.
Because they are taxing the coffee beans. Folgers coffee is going up because of what Trump is doing.
Yes, that's right.
It's potentially going to be pretty crazy. I mean, most economists are not saying this is going to be good news for America, and the word recession is coming up as a 50-50 proposition. You know, Democrats have been behind tariffs in the past. At the same time, in terms of advertising that you were talking about, Simone, Jonathan Lemire, one thing the Democrats have is some free advertising from the White House, which held a big, massive event with music and fanfare and loud applause to the announcement of these tariffs. They made a thing of it.
Yeah, it was a pep rally. It was a pep rally. And President Trump has tried to make Liberation Day a thing for quite some time. He started talking about it back in January. It was originally scheduled to be February.
He really believes in it.
They pushed it back until yesterday. But, Chairman, to your point, the tariffs do have at times receptive audiences. For instance, the UAW.
Of course.
There were members there in that Rose Garden press conference yesterday. That's a union that has been supportive of these. We had Representative Dingell of Michigan on Way Too Early a couple hours back said that, look, if used appropriately, tariffs can be okay. So how do you those UAW workers are in so much? We know the last couple cycles, Democrats have really tried to get those sort of white working class voters back. A lot of them that's who was represented in the Rose Garden yesterday anyway. So how do you thread that needle to try to bring those voters back to the tent, at the same time being so opposed to what they, yesterday at least, were supporting?
Well, as I said, I mean, we can't be so reflexively anti-tariff. We understand that tariffs, when applied the right way, can help U.S. industries. The auto industry is an example. The steel industry is an example, right? But the way that this is being done is so unsophisticated. It is going to have a huge impact on everyone. And at the end of the day, it's going to raise taxes on everything. And we see that even on the automobile industry, right? While it might help with jobs for UAW and certainly help the auto industry, there's no doubt that the way cars are made right now, the taxes and the tariffs on these parts that are coming in from overseas are going to rise the cost of a new car for anyone who wants to purchase a new automobile in this country. And so we have to be really clear about this, right? We are not anti-tariff. What we're saying is we are anti-taxes, and the way that they are being applied here is completely indiscriminate. It's wrong. It's chaotic. It's going to destroy global markets. And at the end of the day, hardworking Americans who can barely survive right now are going to have to pay more in taxes. Just what Simone said. On basic goods, all those costs are going to rise, and it's going to hit low wealth and low income communities the hardest.
Steve Rattner just showed us that in one of his charts, that this is, in fact, regressive. Mr. Chairman, let's take a step back to 5 months ago, a demoralizing loss on Election Day for Democrats. They couldn't believe their eyes that this man was going to come back into the White House. New leadership at the top of the party here. What lessons can you tell our viewers you took from that election and that campaign, and what has changed over the last couple of months in terms of the vision of the party?
How many hours do we have? I mean,
Go for it. Actually,
there's a lot of lessons. There's a lot of lessons we've learned, and there's still lessons we're learning, right? We're still trying to unpack the last election. We really need to understand why we lost ground with so many parts of our coalition, right? But what we're learning in the last 2 months is that there's real opportunity for us right now, right? That the American people are waking up. There's so much buyer's remorse out there. People who voted for Donald Trump who feel like he's betrayed them. All throughout this country, we're hearing stories left and right of people who just feel like this administration is leaving them behind. And so this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for the Democratic Party to get off the mat, get themselves back in this fight, and fight for the American people again. I would posit one of the reasons we've lost so much ground over years, not just this last election, with so many parts of this country, is because people don't feel like the Democratic Party is fighting for them and their families anymore. And so this is our opportunity, when it's very clear that Trump and Musk and J.D. Vance could give a damn about their lives, for the Democratic Party to fill that space and give them a sense, not just that we're going to fight and resist Donald Trump, but that the alternative of what we would do when we're in power to center their lives, lift up their voices, and help their communities is the right path forward. That's the opportunity we have right now. That's a lesson Democrats are starting to learn. And you saw that just the other day when Cory Booker took to the floor and in probably one of the greatest moments I've seen in politics, held the floor of the Senate for 25 hours in one of the most courageous moral statements I've seen in years. That's what we need. We need real fight, not performative action, real fight for the American people, and that's going to give us a chance to win again.
Jim Messina was here just a minute ago. He said, good news, certainly in Wisconsin, good news in those 2 Florida districts, cutting the margins in half in just a couple of months. But it's not enough to be anti-Trump, anti-Elon Musk, and that the party needs an economic message. So what is the economic message?
No, I agree with you. Well, here it is, just in a nutshell, right? Our party has always believed in the American dream. And I think the reality is that while Trump and the Republicans talk about the American dream, all they believe in, and have for years, Republicans, is this idea of trickle-down economics. You put more money in the hands of people who already have a lot of money, it's going to help everyone else out. We know that's demonstrably false. It's never been proven. The best economic periods, by the way, in this country have always been under Democratic presidents, not under Republican presidents, and we see that once again here with Trump. But the reality is we believe in the American dream. We understand that there's systemic barriers in the way of people achieving that, and our job as Democrats is to remove that. The reality is we want every family, wherever you're from, no matter where you live, no matter who you love, everyone should have an opportunity to get ahead in life, not just get by. They should have an opportunity to climb the economic ladder and build something better for their families. That's something Democrats believe in. That is our economic agenda. Our job is to remove barriers in the path for people to achieve that, so everyone has that same opportunity, and that's what we're going to be fiercely focused on. Sometimes, you know, our party has focused on all other issues except economics. We need to focus squarely on an economic agenda that helps give people a sense that we're fighting for them and their families and their communities. When we do that again, and especially at this time when Republicans are failing them so miserably, if we do this right now, we will win.